Hey everybody, Sam from the Eventbrite Boost team here. I hope each and every one of you are having yourselves a fantastic day. And in today's video, we are going to be covering how to audit and improve the Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns that you create to advertise your upcoming events. So let's go ahead and dive straight into it. So ideally, all of us would love to see a fantastic campaign that looks like this. We're seeing great purchases result from our investment on our ad campaign. We're seeing great engagement interaction, but sometimes when we create a campaign, it might not feel like, the results that we're actually seeing are really translating to ticket sales or translating to our given objective that we're trying to maximize for. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be breaking down this successful campaign here. We're going to be going very in depth into the 5 major variables that impact your ad campaign's performance. So hopefully you can walk away from this video here today equipped with a lot of information to better improve the ad campaigns that you're building and feel more confident as an event marketer. So first diving into it, let's cover the 5 main variables that go into your ad campaign's performance. The first one of those is going to be the campaign type in the schedule. So what type of campaign am I running and when am I running that? The second is going to be our target audience mix. So who are we targeting? Are we targeting individuals with purchase intent in this current period of time? The third variable is going to be our budget. How much are we actually spending and allocating for our campaigns and when we are running them? Fourth is going to be the ad creative that we are using to attract individuals seeing our ad. And the fifth is going to be conversion tracking, which is a fancy word for basically how we can track results that come from your ad campaigns. So let's start off first by talking about the campaign type and schedule. And I have a few questions here that you can ask yourself to determine almost what type of campaign should be running. So the option on the left that we're seeing right here, the get people to buy tickets on your website, this commonly refers to what's referred to as a link click or conversion ad on Facebook if you've ever ran one of those. Basically, that's a fancy word for saying we're running an ad campaign that's going straight to your Eventbrite ticketing pages or your website, normally where it's most easy and accessible for your customers to actually purchase and register. So if you ran one of these types of campaigns to get people to buy tickets on your website and you didn't see the best results, the first question that you honestly should ask yourself is, are my customers currently purchasing or are they likely to purchase at this point in time? Really try to empathize with your customer's perspective and put yourself in their shoes. If your event's maybe 3 months out, your customer's not worried if the event's going to sell out or anything like that, why would we have the expectation that your customer at this point in time is going to be buying tickets? They might as well wait towards a later date where they can actually ensure they can attend the event and then go ahead and purchase. So these normally are the best campaigns to run when there's legitimate urgency for your customers to be buying and we're actually seeing sales. But if we're in a period where we're not seeing a lot of sales and we maybe ran one of this type of campaigns, we might not be seeing the best results. Now, the second most popular type of ad campaign are Facebook event RSVPs. A few questions that you could ask yourself are, am I currently in a time period where my customers might be purchasing now, but in all reality, they're a lot more likely to be purchasing later down the road? And these are the campaigns that are almost the best of both worlds. They're best when we want to grow social proof, remarketing audiences, and engagement while still making it extremely accessible. It's basically only one more click for somebody to buy through your Facebook event compared to sending them directly to your ticketing pages. And if you need to create a Facebook event, we highly recommend leverage the add to Facebook feature to easily publish your Eventbrite event into a Facebook event so you could run this type of ad campaign. So ultimately, when it comes to the campaign type and schedule, it really revolves around, are we in a period of time where our customers are actually purchasing? If we're running one of these ads directing people straight to our ticketing pages and we're in a period where people aren't likely to buy, most likely people aren't going to be clicking, engaging, or interacting on my ad, and then we're losing them as potential individuals we could remarket down the road. Whereas with a Facebook event RSVP campaign, if somebody simply visits that Facebook event or takes it one step further and hits interested or going, they're now in the audiences that your campaign is most likely marketing to so that you can remarket to them later down the road at a time point where they're more likely to actually purchase. So let's go ahead and just briefly cover, a couple different types of events that have different buying curves. You can see this curve within the event strategy section of the platform to actually get an understanding of when are your customers purchasing, and then we'll recommend based on your purchase cycle for your events when you should be running what type of campaign. But I'd love to share the context with you on why and when we recommend certain types of campaigns. So just some examples of events that normally have, early buying curves and then late buying curves, generally your concert-oriented events, where we normally might have something like a pre-sale, we see a big spike of tickets during that initial on-sale, then sales kind of die down for a little bit. We might do a little bit of advertising later down the road, and then as the urgency getting closer to that event occurs, we normally see a really big spike in ticket sales. So for these types of events, normally we might want to be running the ads that go straight to our ticketing pages, maybe near the early bird. We might not want to be doing it as much in the halfway there period, and then maybe we're doing that in the last call period. Whereas the RSVP ads can pretty much be incorporated at any point throughout the cycle, but are more advantageous than the ads that go straight to the ticketing pages if you're in a period like this, halfway there period where we're maybe not selling a ton of tickets. Other events that have significantly late buying sales curves, this would be examples of comedy events, late night DJ events that attract a younger crowd that generally tends to purchase a lot later. You can see for this graph that we have here, we don't really sell a lot of tickets, a ways out from the event, but as we get towards maybe that last week, we see a really big ramp up in individuals registering or purchasing tickets. So for an example like this, we might want to be optimizing for Facebook event RSVP ads that help build engagement and remarketing audiences as we lead up to this last call period, and then we can really send them straight to our ticketing pages, making it as easy and accessible for them to purchase. Additionally, other events such as beer festivals or outdoor things that might rely on the weather, many of these tend to have late buying cycles as well, but we always know that your individual buying curves are going to be different from event to event. And events that have relatively flat buying cycles, something like a Disney on Ice, your Peppa Pig, your Halloween Horror Nights, these are generally ones that have pretty consistent urgency, recurring events. So we generally see a pretty consistent buying process. So almost either type of campaign would work pretty advantageously in these scenarios. So let's actually go over to the campaign that we were looking at as this example, this fantastic ad campaign here, just to kind of point out, what type of campaign did this individual run based on where they were in their cycle. So this was a campaign run for upcoming festival here. We could see that this campaign started around June 22nd, and if we scroll down towards the bottom, this actual event was around 2 months out. It was happening in August. So we're coming in here with the expectation that we're still a ways away from our event. We know not a lot of individuals might be purchasing. So what this individual actually ran here was they ran a campaign that was specifically advertising that Facebook event to get people to RSVP while actually making it accessible for people to purchase. And even though the main objective of this campaign was getting people into the funnel to RSVP, we actually ended up selling a really significant amount of tickets via this because individuals are very easily able to purchase tickets using the Facebook event itself. If you're using that add to Facebook feature, it uses that embedded checkout, which is basically almost one more click compared to sending them to the ticketing pages. So this individual did a great job running the right type of campaign based on how far they were out from their event, but you can always use the sales curve within the strategy section so that we can help give you a recommendation on what campaign type we think you should be running. Now jumping over to the next main variable, that's going to be our target audience mix. So effectively, who are we targeting with the campaign that we are running? The first thing that is very important to be doing is A/B testing multiple audiences. The analogy I could give here is, if you were investing in a stock portfolio, you're generally not going to go all in on one particular stock. If that stock hits, you might retire a millionaire or something like that, but if that stock doesn't do well, we don't have any other stocks within that portfolio that might be performing better. So when it comes to the Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns that you create, it's important to incorporate A/B testing so that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket here, so that our system can intelligently move budget from audiences that aren't performing as well to audiences that are better converting for your objective, whether that be ticket sales or driving engagement or RSVPs. The second thing to ask yourself is, am I using the best data sources that I have available to me? Many different types of what are referred to as custom audiences in Facebook are really difficult to build. Is you're building your audiences in one place and then going to a completely separate place to build your campaign. But odds are, especially if you've been a long time Eventbrite user, you've been collecting a lot of really, really powerful data that's actually going to really help benefit your strategy to drive ticket sales or registrations for your event. And the last thing is, are we matching our current objective or our targeting with our, customers' purchase intent? If we're, a really ways out from our event, maybe targeting something like remarketing audiences might drive purchases, as those individuals might be likely to purchase. But if we're blowing all of our budget or really ways out on audiences that don't even know who we are, those people most likely don't have as much purchase intent for what we are targeting here. So let's actually go over to this campaign to kind of briefly explain what this individual did in terms of the target audiences and how they had leveraged A/B testing. So we'll go ahead and skip over to the target audience section. Now what we are actually looking at is the advanced version of the targeting interface. We have two different versions, and if you'd like to learn more about this and how you can incorporate more powerful audiences into your campaign based on the data sources you have available, we'll have a completely separate video going a lot more in depth on that. But basically looking at this campaign here, what we ended up doing was, the first audience we targeted was we were simply targeting interests. So we were targeting individuals interested in specific artists or different interests related to our event. So this was a music related event, so we generally targeted a lot of individuals interested in the artists that were performing and then other similar artists as well. Now, we actually A/B tested that against another audience where we simply targeted people interested in the genre of music. So in any case, normally you're generally working with at least an interest audience, targeting people that are interested in your event. But if you don't have a lot of other data to work with, you could always try out a different interest audience to test something a little bit different. In that case, if one doesn't perform as well, we have another audience that's hopefully performing better that will get more of that budget at the end of the day. And additionally, this interest audience is always included if you're using the simple targeting. So even if you're not using this advanced targeting mix, you're always filling out an interest audience for the simple targeting. So don't stress it if you're not jumping into this right away and it might seem a little bit overwhelming for you initially. Now, the next audience, and this is an audience that's also included in the simple targeting when you're first going through it, is something called the grouped remarketing audience. You could think of this audience as we're basically consolidating all the individuals that have the greatest purchase intent into one easy audience for us to target. So in this case, we pulled in individuals that interact with our Facebook page and various Facebook events. So why Facebook events are extremely important, as if somebody visits your Facebook event or they engage with it, we can actually remarket to them with this audience that's normally automatically included in any campaign you build. So if we get 1,000 new people RSVPing to our event, we now have this awesome audience of 1,000 new people that we can remarket to at a point where they're more likely to purchase down the road. Additionally, we can also include individuals that interact with the Instagram pages we have access to. Just to note, it does have to be something called an Instagram business account here. So the account that you have access to might not necessarily be an Instagram business. So if you don't have it, it's no worries. Normally, the most important thing is targeting the engagement of your Facebook pages. And then additionally, if you have a Facebook pixel, you can include that as well. And this also can help include individuals that have purchased from you in the past. And the way that that works is if you have somebody's email, they've purchased from you, basically that email goes to Facebook. Facebook identifies that email with somebody's Facebook or Instagram profile, and then you can hit them with your ads. And normally from the data that we found, some of the best individuals to target for your events, if you have repeated purchasers, are those that have bought from you in the past. And additionally, taking it one step further, this isn't going to be accessible to every advertiser, especially if you're getting started, but I want to open your eyes to this option that's available for you to do. And this might be a reason why you might want to start exploring this advanced targeting as well. But basically, what's referred to as a lookalike audience, think of this as basically an audience that accomplishes the exact same purpose as these interest audiences that we have here. So we're simply targeting people interested in similar things related to our event to help us go after brand new people that might not necessarily be familiar with our brand or organization. What a lookalike does is it takes a pool of data and Facebook basically figures out the new audience for you. So one of the best lookalikes that you can build is off of the data of your past purchasers. What better audience to use as a model to go after brand new people than the individuals that have already bought from you in the past? So this individual actually A/B tested alongside kind of the interests and the remarketing audiences. Since they had access to more data, they were also able to market to a lookalike of individuals that bought from them in the past, as well as a lookalike of people that interacted with the Facebook page that they had access to here in this section, in their Facebook events here as well. So that pretty much covers the target audience mix. We just want to make sure that we are A/B testing multiple audiences, we're using the best data that we have available towards us, and that we're matching our targeting with the objective and our consumer's purchase intent at this point in time. Now, jumping over to the budget step, there isn't as much to talk about in regards to the budget, but what I would like to refer to is what's referred to as the minimum budget compared to the recommended budget. So the minimum budget that you need for an ad campaign, if we go back to this example where we had 4 audiences in this picture here, the minimum budget is $1 a day per audience you include in your campaign. So if you just kind of roll with the general setup, normally the minimum budget is $2 a day, 2 audiences included by default. But what we generally recommend, or Facebook recommends, is trying to spend around $5 or more a day per audience you have. Now we know this might not be accessible to everybody, so it's okay if you're spending closer to the minimum compared to the recommended. But the reason why we recommend spending a tad bit more is basically your budget. So if we spend more budget, it ends up reaching more people, and that equips Facebook and Instagram with more data to better optimize your ads delivery to the people that might be likely to purchase or register. So generally, if you could try, what we'd recommend is maybe spending closer to $5 a day per audience. So for a normal campaign that you set up, if you're not working with the advanced targeting section, maybe that's anywhere between $10 to $15 a day if you can afford it, but it's always okay if you spend a little bit closer to the minimum, and we'll always let you know if you're not meeting the minimum budget for that campaign, as you can see in this image that we have here. And the next question in regards to budget is, am I properly allocating this budget at the right point in time based on my schedule? So if we're spending 100% of our budget when we know people aren't going to be purchasing for the next 2 months, we've effectively exhausted all of that budget and it's not matching with our schedule. So it's also really important to keep in mind the schedule of when individuals are most likely to purchase so that we have enough budget reserved for those periods that we can actually run ads to them in periods where they are more likely to purchase. And also, we just want to make sure that, we're not kind of overspending on that wrong type of ad, basically routing straight back to that. And the last thing is, am I actually maybe doing too much? Do I have maybe too many audiences in my campaign, or did I make too many variations of my creatives? This was an honest first mistake that I made when I started with Facebook or Instagram advertising. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but you might think, if I include more audiences or I include more variations, that just means different people are seeing different content. We're testing and learning a lot of different things. But the way your campaign actually works is we have your total campaign budget. So we can see this example here, maybe $100 budget. It's split up into 2 target audiences. So basically like that interest and then maybe the group remarketing. And then underneath that, we have all the different variations of your ads if you're doing a lot of A/B testing. So basically, if we add in a ton of variations, what's happening is that budget is being so spread thin across all these different audiences and these different creatives that Facebook and Instagram have a really hard time of actually figuring out what's working, and it has a hard time designating, maybe this is the creative we should show primarily, or this is the best audience driving for our objective. So I'd say just don't go overboard. It is important to always incorporate A/B testing, but you don't need to go too crazy with it at the end of the day. So if we take a look at the budget that was allocated for this campaign, this creator spent close to $350 here, which is a pretty significant budget, definitely over that minimum budget for the campaign that was running right here. And the next variable that we have in terms of our campaign's performance is the ad creative. Now, this is what everybody sees when they're actually scrolling through Facebook or Instagram to go ahead and take a look at the ad creative. Generally, some of the best practices for ad creatives is try to minimize the total number of A/B testing or variations of your ad that you create. In all honesty, we have around 2 to 3 second attention spans nowadays, and the most important thing of your ad that captures your viewer's attention is going to be that image or video that you're using. So if there's almost anything that's most important to A/B test, maybe you're doing 2 images, you're doing an image or a video, but in all honesty, if you're really spending the bare minimum budget, I probably wouldn't recommend incorporating a significant amount of A/B testing, as it actually might hurt your campaign more than it might help you. But if you have larger budgets, it gives you more flexibility to do more A/B testing in regards to your creatives. But really the main thing that you need to focus on is strictly the image or video that you're using. Best thing to effectively A/B test. The next component would be try to prioritize using video content. I know a lot of us don't have designated teams to be building video content. We're literally working with what we have available towards us. But if you had, infinite resources at the end of the day, the best type of image or video that you could use really is going to be using videos over images, as they generally outperform them in probably 99% of all scenarios, as you're just giving people a lot more context. They're actually seeing maybe what's going on, and it's a lot more engaging than a simple image or something. And generally, the most important things that you want to make sure you're getting across probably somewhere in your ad creative is just give people the who, the what, and the when. So, what's the event? Who might be there? When is that event occurring? We want to make sure that we're getting across that most important information, because you don't want to be sending your customers on a scavenger hunt to even figure out what's going on with your event, what type it is, when it's happening. We want to be delivering that information to the people seeing your ad pretty much on a silver platter here in a very nice way, but you don't need to be extremely redundant. So, this was a Facebook Facebook RSVP ad right here, we basically had, when it's occurring, where it's occurring, the name of the event within the Facebook event itself, and the creative. So for the post text that they were using up towards the top, they really didn't need to add a significant amount of stuff. And additionally, it's always important to make sure you're getting a sense of urgency across for customers to be purchasing or registering for your upcoming event. As let's say, for example, if you are a festival, you might be having a price hike increase that actually drives urgency for people to purchase before a specific date. If your customers don't really know when that date is occurring, that there's a price hike increase, we can't expect them just to know by seeing the ad that they're actually going to be aware of that. And that's really important to actually helping drive their decision to maybe do I purchase today or do I wait, a month later down the road to purchase. And we over here at Boost are big fans of emojis. You might think it's a little dumb, but emojis are an amazing eye-catching attention element that you can incorporate in your campaign that'll help differentiate your content from, all of the other bland content as people are scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of feet of content every day on Facebook or Instagram. And lastly, I'd really recommend bring your own character, bring your flavor, bring your personality into here. Nobody likes looking at ads that felt like they've been built by robots, so always feel free to change up the sample text that we auto-generate for you and bring some fun into it, as that's really what's going to get across to people at the end of the day, and we really want them to be engaged with what you're creating and not feel like your ad might be an annoyance or something like that. So let's quickly take a look at the ad creative that they had leveraged here in this section. So basically this was very, very simple. It automatically pulled in the image associated with their Facebook event, and they just put in a very simple post text here. If we could have done anything to even maybe improve the performance, what we might have done is if we happen to have a video accessible for us to use, we might have added in that video. We might have, maybe added a little bit more stuff in the post text, but we basically addressed the who, what, when, and the why. There wasn't as much urgency in this situation, so this was a perfectly fine creative for what we were effectively doing here. And lastly, if you ever need to customize the images or videos on a per placement basis, just to make your ad look a little bit more professional, you can always click on this pen icon underneath the image or video. So let's say, for example, let's pretend we were running a different ad campaign that ran on both Facebook and Instagram. This event ad is only running on Facebook here, but if we wanted to use a vertical video or image specifically for Instagram stories, and then this more landscape or horizontal image for Facebook placements, we'd be easily able to do that by clicking on the pen icon that we have right here. So pretty much that covers everything for the ad creative. And the last section to talk about is something called conversion tracking. This is just a fancy word for kind of how we're tracking the results from our ad campaign. So if we go back to this ad campaign that we had over here, you could see up towards the top that, they actually drove around a 10x return. So for every dollar that they invested, they made around $10 back worth in ticket sales for the ad that they were running here. Now, just to note, this is a extremely high performing campaign, so don't feel bad if you're not necessarily getting a return that looks like this, as there are some variables that also might help explain why you might not be seeing a lot of sales data resulting from your campaign, but you could be seeing sales data on the back end. So first and foremost, you might have heard of something called a Facebook pixel. Think of this as just basically a kind of simple little piece of code, kind of just like a digited number that normally you're plugging in the back end on Eventbrite. And generally, this was the basis of how we tracked revenue previously for ad campaigns. So on this little graphic here, normally the way it worked is if we had that pixel installed on our ticketing pages, if somebody clicked on our ad and then went and bought within a 7-day period, that purchase would be recorded and tied back to our ad campaign. And alternatively, there's something called view-based tracking. So simply if I just view your ad as I'm scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, I then maybe Google events near me, make my way to your Eventbrite ticketing page and make that purchase. If I do that within a 1-day period, so a 24-hour window, that purchase would also be recorded. But to let you know, as a result of many of the recent changes from Facebook and Apple's iOS 14 updates, the vast majority of people have actually been opting out of this type of pixel tracking. So if you're not seeing a lot of data, that's one of the explanations. Is close to, from what we're seeing in preliminary reports, around 90% of people are actually opting out of this tracking. And if they opt out, there's effectively no way you could track via that pixel. But the pixel still is important at the end of the day, as it might be recording some purchases, but we're moving as an industry kind of away from Facebook pixels and more towards privacy within the future. But the pixel is still important. In most cases, we're automatically installing your Facebook pixel for you on Eventbrite, so you don't even need to worry about it whatsoever. But we also have guides on how you could install this yourself if you would ever like to do it. Normally only takes around 2 minutes within your Eventbrite backend, and then you never have to worry about it ever again. But just to reiterate, we are normally automatically installing this for you, so you most likely don't need to worry too much about it. Now, one additional and really exciting thing that we've had as of late that's been a solution to some of these challenges brought up for tracking revenue is something called offline conversion tracking. And what this is it's a way that basically the email data from people that purchase for your Eventbrite events can be communicated to Facebook. So even if somebody isn't tracked via that Facebook pixel, we can hopefully still track some of those purchases that result from your ads and tie it back to your ad campaign. So this campaign that we had here was actually leveraging this offline tracking, which helped track some of these purchases from people that might have opted out of that pixel tracking. Just to note, you do have to have an Instagram business account, and we have additional guides that'll talk you through how to get this offline tracking rolling, but it's a really, really awesome, unique feature of Eventbrite Boost that really is an advantage for you in understanding how your campaigns are actually translating to ticket sales at the end of the day. And lastly, you might just want to ask yourself, are my customers purchasing in ways that we can't necessarily track, even if we have pixel tracking or we have offline conversion tracking? Let's maybe take, for example, comedy events that generally sometimes are walk-up heavy in terms of ticket sales. You're not going to be able to really track the result of that physical purchase of that ticket via your ad campaign. So always, I'd say, refer to the back end of your sales data to just see, are my campaigns generally having a good overall effectiveness in driving sales in the overall? And lastly, especially if you've been somebody that previously was doing a lot of event marketing advertising prior to the recent iOS 14 changes and what occurred with Facebook, you'll also really want to adjust your expectations. As many of us might have seen huge return on ad spends previously from a lot of campaigns. This basically was almost a double whammy effect of not only did this window for where the purchases kind of get recorded, so it used to be more of a kind of 28-day window shrunk down to a 7-day window. So many purchases, or you'll just have a naturally lower return on ad spend from the campaigns if you're seeing a return on ad spend. But then secondary, many people have been opting out of pixel tracking as well. So even some of those individuals that you might have previously tracked aren't being tracked. So it's important for us to also just adjust our expectations and be aware that we might need to look towards alternative methods, such as looking at sales on the back end to see how individuals are purchasing, to really create a full and comprehensive picture of how people are purchasing for our campaigns. So y'all, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about today in today's video. Let's just back it up real quick and one last time go over those 5 main variables. So really, it's that campaign type and schedule that we're using here. So are we running a campaign sending people straight to our ticketing pages, or are we running an event response ad during the correct time period for when our customers are most likely to purchase or register? Second, are we using a good target audience mix? I also recommend take a look at that advanced targeting mix if you want to learn a little bit more, as there might be some newer audiences you can incorporate, especially if you've been a long-time Eventbrite user. But we are moving towards automating a lot more of this down the road, so if you're watching this at a far point in the future, you might not need to worry about this as much. Thirdly, just make sure that you're reserving enough budget to actually be running your campaigns during these timing periods where your customers are most likely to purchase or register, and that we're not blowing all of our budget in this early bird period when we have no expectation that people are even going to be purchasing. And then lastly, make sure we're using good, interesting ad creatives, not doing too much A/B testing, doing the things that are most important, such as the images or videos that we're leveraging, and make sure that we're having fun with it, that we're getting our brand, that we're getting our language across, and really captivating people. As we look through so much content every single day, it's important for you to try as much as you can to really develop a personal relationship with your customer via those ads. And lastly, just kind of make sure you have everything on the back end successfully installed via tracking, but most of this is kind of automated and handled for you automatically, so you might not need to worry about this as much. So everybody, thank you so much for your time. I know you always have a lot on your plate, so I really appreciate you taking the time to help learn, and I really hope this helps you walk away with some fantastic information of how you can build some really, really strong campaigns and get the best bang for the buck at the end of the day. So everybody, my name has been Sam from the Eventbrite Boost team here. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of your day and really appreciate your time. Take care.